Keith, what's up, brother? Great to see you.
Ryan, great to be here, man.
We've had lots of good talks over the years, I would say, but we've only done one podcast together, so I figured we were about due for another formal conversation.
I'm in, bro. I'm in. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Well, what I wanted to talk with you about is marriage. This is a conversation that we tap dance around, that we talk about, especially as it relates to being a better man. Of course, we want to be better husbands.
Yeah.
And we've had some great conversations even over the past couple of months. And I
Yeah.
thought, man, what better person to have come talk about some of these concepts and to break this down, because it's so hard. I feel like this will be beneficial for me just as much as it will anybody else, but it's just so hard to be a good husband. Like, I don't think it comes naturally, for me anyways, and I promise I'll let you talk. But for me, it feels like being a businessman comes really natural, but being a good husband is something that I like deliberately and consciously have to work on.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'll let it fall through the cracks.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think it's because being a businessman is praised in our society. And actually, if you think back to what you didn't know compared to what you know now, I would probably dare say that being a businessman is way harder than being a husband in terms of the skills you actually have to learn. Bro, I was a carpenter making $9 an hour. I had no idea how to do anything business-wise, but I at least kind of in the beginning felt like, well, I should just love my wife, like somehow. But what that actually means feels like a whole different language. So I totally agree with what you're saying. The feeling of, man, business seems like, well, this guy wants this, I can provide it for this, and he'll give me the money. Let's go about our business. Whereas the marriage thing is like, wait a second. So you said this, but you mean this. And like, so I agree with what you're saying wholeheartedly. And I just think it's what our society praises versus what our society doesn't praise. Has a lot to do with it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think to a degree, sure. But I don't really feel like I'm trying to gain the accolades of somebody else by being a good businessman or being a good family man. I think it's more of what you talked about, where it's hard to interpret. So, if your wife, for example, says or alludes, she probably won't even say it, but feels like you don't you don't love me. It's like, what are you talking about? I
Mm,
do this work, I say these things, I do this, I do that. Well, none of that means I love you. Yeah, no, it does, because that's like the way that I share it. But in
yeah.
business, it's like, oh, your prices are too high. Check, got it. I'll lower my prices, or I'll work with somebody else, right?
Yeah,
It's
good
way more
point.
tangible and measurable
Yeah.
than to use the name of what you do than the married game is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done. I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's in business, you can go, hey, my bank account's low. I must not be doing very good. Whereas in a
Right.
marriage, you're like, my wife left me 5.5 years ago and said, basically, you run your business, you come home and talk about your business, and you fall asleep on the couch. And when she actually said, my life would be better without you in it, and her and my 2-year-old daughter left, this was over 5.5 years ago. It wasn't as obvious to be like, oh shit, I only have 7 grand in my account. I better really start hustling. So you know what? You're right. The indications of whether you're doing good or bad are way different in marriage than they are in business. So you know what? You're 100% right.
What indicators do you suggest that men look at? Like, how do you know if things are firing? Because I know how I feel,
Yeah.
but I don't know how she feels all the time. I mean, there's
Yeah.
there's obviously clues and hints and cues, but sometimes we miss them or we're oblivious to them. But what indicators should we be looking at?
Well, okay. So every guy I've talked to when their wife's about ready to leave or has left, or she's no longer, initiating connection and intimacy and the stuff that we as guys really like,
Sure.
we I came up with a system to be able to actually check what are the checkpoints to know whether you're being a good husband or not, because I didn't see it readily available. And when my wife left, it caught me by surprise. I was like, wait a second. Okay, I understand I may not be as good as I was in the beginning, but I can't be so bad that you're actually literally saying your life would be better without me in it. So it
Mm-hmm.
totally sideswiped me. And when I said, hey, why didn't you just tell me straight up? She goes, I did tell you straight up. And I'm like, nah, let's rewind the tape. I want to go all the way back. Now, what I've learned about women is that they talk covertly, whereas us as men talk overtly. If you're out of line, I'm like, hey, Ryan, you're out of line. Or if I say something stupid, you go,
Right.
Keith, that's kind of stupid. But women aren't that way. And I've discovered that they don't speak as overtly as us do. So the things that I've been able to figure out to know personally, if I'm on point within my marriage, are something I call the 5 dials. And we can jump into those. And it's just a simple metric that you can track to find out, hey, am I doing very good or not? And then if she decides to leave, and yet you're doing good on all the points, then you can realize, hey, maybe this just wasn't a fit, and then you can part ways rather than feeling desperate and disempowered and just trying to clamor for any affection at all. You can be empowered and be like, no, wait a second, hold on. I'm a great parent. I'm a great partner. I'm a great producer. I'm a great player. I stand within my power within my marriage. Like, I'm actually doing the work. And I think that's where I was mistaken. I didn't know what work to actually do to create a thriving, hot, and like sexually intimate relationship. So we can dive into all of that.
Yeah, I would like to. One thing you said, though, I want to hit on is the part ways thing. Because, you jump on any marriage Facebook group or any, man's type group on social media or whatever. And guys will say, oh, just get over it. She's not worth it. And she's not this. Just get over it. Move on. It's time to move on. Oh, she cheated on you. You'll move on.
Yeah.
That would be great. I'm sure there's so many men that are listening to this right now. I'd be like, yeah, I'd love to do that. I would love to move on. I would love to just get over it. But it's not always that easy, of course, because you love this woman. But what is it about these dials? Are you saying these dials then help you to get to that point?
Well, yeah, because most times when, like, for our experience, for me, and I've walked, I've had a couple 100 dudes come through my program, and I've worked with, even beside that, like 75 guys trying to get their actual exes back. And what I've learned in those situations is most guys trying to get their ex back, or their wife that's about ready to leave back, they feel a deep amount of regret because they didn't know what to do specifically. Even though when I'm explaining these dials, you're going to be like, Keith, this is so simple. I'm like, I know. This is why it's so maddening, because you're like, if I just do this simple shit, she would be so happy. And yet I didn't do it. And so now I felt like most guys feel the regret. They're like, oh my gosh, I want one more chance. And a lot of times it's too late for the woman. And so what these 5 dials can actually do is show you where you're, like, it's for me, it's an objective standard that I can test myself against to give myself proof whether I'm really actually doing the work or not. So I found most guys regret that they can't go back and actually do the work to get their wife back.
Yeah, I mean, too little, too late, right? Isn't that
Yeah.
like that's the story of all of our lives. Like, we all have regrets, we all have things. And I've even said, oh man, I wish I could rewind the clock. Well, yeah. but we can't, right? And that's the trick. Yeah, that deep regret. So how do you then overcome that regret? If you've got somebody in your life who is moved on or is moving on, like a lot of times happens, like, how do you get over the pain of what happened in the past? And you might even acknowledge that it was your doing.
Yeah. Well, I've discovered that 95% of the time it is actually the guy's fault. And I know that's a big number, and that's not me beating on men. It's just me wanting to say, hey, this is what I discovered is the truth. Is once I realized I was the problem, that gave me hope to realize that I'm actually the solution. And there's a couple of things that we believe. And when I say we, it's like the community that I serve, and these are the tenets that we hold. So when I say that, I understand that probably not all men believe this, but what I believe is that if there is a metric that you can stand up against, for example, we talked about the bank account. Like, if my bank account is growing and my customers and clients are happy, that's a metric that I can go, hey, we're winning. We've got a satisfaction score, and we've got obviously money coming in the bank. Well, a lot of guys, we don't have that for marriage. So I came up with the 5 dials. They're like, hey, this might not ease the pain temporarily, but it will at least give me an understanding on how I need to move forward for the next person. And a statement that we say all the time is, what we do is we become the most attractive version of ourselves for ourselves. Like, I'm pushing to become physically better, financially better, and these types of areas for one reason, is because it's a standard that I hold that I want to live up to. and regardless if my wife appreciates it or not. And that's because a lot of guys give away their power. They're seeking validation. Oh, I hope my wife likes this. I hope my wife gives me an attaboy. I hope my wife, and we do a lot of things just for our wife's approval, as opposed to living up to the standard that we know is that we should be really setting for. So these dials actually set up, what standard do you want to live by, regardless if somebody will appreciate you or not for them.
Which is, it's ironic because the more I've realized that I do that, the more attractive I am. Not
100%.
just as a potential husband, but a business partner, just in general, like the more attractive I become when I care less about what other people think and their approval and more about me being able to validate myself.
Yeah. But most people can't validate themselves because they have no way of validate. There's no benchmark to validate themselves. So we seek validations from others because we can get something back. Validating yourself is really, really difficult if you don't actually like yourself or trust yourself or believe in yourself. And most men actually don't do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it. So the subconscious, or whatever that part of the brain that keeps you and I breathing while we're sleeping, and all the things, and our heart ticking, and all the stuff that we don't consciously think about doing, that piece of the brain, if it knows that when you say you're going to get up at 6 and yet you put your alarm on and you get up at 7 every morning, it knows you're a liar. And so it's like, we would never trust anybody that lied to us, or at least not twice. And so if we have no metric to a standard, if I go, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. every single morning, and I do it, my confidence is built, and my belief in what I say is going to happen actually happens. Then I actually care about validating myself. Most men don't care about validating themselves because they look at themselves and go, who am I to be validating anybody? Because I've never done anything.
So is validation just a measurement of keeping promises to yourself?
Yeah, I think
But
so.
also,
That's
but
one
the
piece
other,
of it.
yeah, because I'm just trying to think about other sides of it. One way that we as men validate ourselves is through our income.
Yeah.
So, but I know as my income has gone up over the years, and it has steadily gone up, like I don't feel more validated, which is I don't feel more validated than I did before because I happen to have an extra zero at the end of my income than I did the previous year.
Yeah.
But we chase those things.
For sure. Well, it's competence. A bulging bank account shows somebody's very competent at something. And so we derive a lot of confidence from our competence. You know what I mean? Like if you come into my world and whatever I happen to be expert at, I'm going to feel really confident about it. But if I stepped into somebody else's world and I wasn't confident about the thing, I immediately am like, I'm not here to validate anything because I don't have no leg to stand on. So I think that's a really valid point.
Yeah. Well, what are the 5 dials? So you said them briefly, but let's go through the first one. What's the first dial?
Okay. So I look at, a lot of guys, when they talk to me or end up coming to me, their wife has already said, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. Or 3 things I say that you're in the pit within your marriage. And I deal specifically with connectedness, intimacy, not sexuality, but being sensual and sexual. I deal with straight dudes. So it's not sexuality. I deal with dudes that like women. And she's judging you on these things. And if she doesn't initiate like sex with you, if she doesn't enthusiastically participate in the actual act with you, or she cares more about the spreadsheets than she does the bed sheets, then she's just not attracted to you. And that's what we find is the reason why women leave is they're no longer attracted. They're no longer leaning in. They're no longer saying, wow, I want to be in your presence. I want to be so close to you that literally I want you inside of me. So what happens is they start to repel and they start to roll their eyes. They don't really care about what you say anymore, and they start to get distracted. Well, the reason all of that happens, I think mechanically, is she's judging guys, and women are judging their men on these 5 things, which we end up calling the 5 dials. So she's checking to say, are you a good parent?
Well, hold on. Before you get to that, Keith, you said something.
Okay.
And we've had this conversation before about attraction. For men, I would imagine, just generally speaking, for the most part, physical attraction is the heavy emphasis. I would imagine, at least initially, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So you've got to be physically attracted. But I think for women, the weight distribution is different. I mean, physical attraction is still important, obviously, but I think it's not as important as the weight that she gives to an emotional attraction or an attraction because she'll feel secure or safe
Yep.
physically and emotionally with somebody else. So it doesn't seem to be as much physical as it is emotional attraction.
Yeah, we seem to be wired differently and put more heavy emphasis on what it is attractive. For us, if we see the right breast to hip ratio, and immediately like something goes. I mean, we can see a woman from like 100 feet away and not even know what she looks like, but just simply by her form go, oh, okay, what's going on there?
Right.
Women probably have that to a degree, but you're right, man. They want to know, am I safe? Am I secure? And it even goes, I think, even deeper in that. And when it really comes like to intimacy, because what I found, Ryan, like if we're being honest, dude, guys like to get laid and we like to get paid. You know what I mean? Like
Of course.
that's on, like, I want to build my business and I want my wife to absolutely want me. And, you know, everybody knows the statement that, you know, all guys want is sex, but I actually think they want something more than that. They want to be wanted. And so
sex is the manifestation of that.
Yeah, it's the fruit on the end of the tree, but the root that causes that fruit to actually blossom and to bloom is understanding what is important to her. And for her, she wants, like, women, they respect man who has resources because he's a leader. And women want to be with a leader, because that's then going to make sure that her genes get passed on. Whether you believe in evolution or not, I personally don't believe in evolution. I believe in a creator. But I think that we were wired in such a way that a woman looks to a man of resources and says, that is my best bet to be able to have offspring and to perpetuate our race. So I think that when it comes to attraction, there's a lot of that. That's why a guy like me, who I'm not Brad Pitt, clearly. Okay.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I'm like, your wife is way more attractive than you deserve, Keith. I mean, I'll just go ahead and throw that out there.
Hey, you might not be wrong. Objectively speaking, you're right. But listen, a guy like me I've been with hundreds of women. So it's not you have to look this certain way to be able to do that. There's other things that cause women to be attractive. And when it comes to like short-term attraction, one night stands, that's a different topic. But what you and I are really interested in, and the movement that you've created, you have attracted men who are in a monogamous, long-term relationship with a woman. And usually after a couple of years, things start to go sideways, or the fire starts to, die out. And guys are like, what is going on? How the heck do I fix this? And so there's a lot of misinformation out there. I hate saying that word. Oh my God. It almost felt bad coming.
It's ruined. I know certain things have just been ruined. Certain words have been ruined, and you can't use them in any other context, even though it makes sense.
Right. So it's I call them pseudo solutions, because there's a lot of guys trying to teach how to get your wife to fall back in love with you or to be intimate with you again. And they throw out stuff like buy her gifts, or, happy wife, happy life, do more around the house, these types of things. And almost every guy has tried all those logical things, and they actually do not work, like hardly ever, if ever. And a lot of guys are like, what the heck, dude? I go, listen, your battle, the reason why the logical stuff doesn't work is because you're not fighting a logical battle. You're fighting a psychological battle. These women's brains is their largest sexual organ. It's where attraction is in the brain. She wants to know, can this guy provide for me? Is this guy going to raise kids with me? Is this guy still going to be fun? So this is where I came up with the dial, because I'm watching these pseudo solutions not work, and every guy's trying them. Like, every guy's tried to buy his wife a nice gift, hoping he'll get lucky. Every guy's tried to take out the trash and do the dishes and clank them around a little extra heavy to try and get lucky. And yet what I'm proposing is, if you understand these 5 dials, luck has nothing to do with it. I believe there's an actual science to getting your wife radically turned back on to you, not just in the bedroom, but like, a lot of guys want to sit and watch a movie with their wife and cuddle and hold hands and of
course,
like,
right.
They want that, even though, porn and all this other stuff has pushed us to make guys seem like they only just want penetration and that's it. No, dude, I've discovered guys, we want to walk, I went to Disneyland with my wife and held her hand and said, this has been a dream of mine since I was 13 to want to walk through Disneyland with my girlfriend. And here you are I'm 44 and here you are. My dream is realized. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. No, I feel the same way. It's not all just about that. There's other things. There's other ways to connect that I'm interested in.
Yeah, for sure. So
what are the 5 dials? So the first you said is what?
Okay. First one is parenting.
Okay.
She has birthed this baby. 9 months in her oven, then, or she baked this baby for 9 months, then bursts it out to the world. Her job biologically is to raise this kid to survive and then to thrive. Like literally that is her number. It's in her wiring. And so when we really dropped the ball, and I'm the first to say, my wife said after we had our first kid, I had 3 other with another woman on my first divorce, but when my wife told me, you're such a bad dad, I don't even want to have another kid with you. Like that was about as low as I could have possibly got.
Yeah.
And the reason why women are judging us as dads, because again, it's back to that resource thing. And I know that women will love their kids more than their husbands 100% of the time, 100% of the time, for one simple reason. Moms don't divorce their kids, but wives divorce their husbands all the time. And so it's just what's in plain sight. Well, I was such a bad dad that it was such a turn off. But now that I'm an excellent dad, my wife's like, it's such a turn on. Why? Because again, resources. I'm raising this child, infusing it with my wisdom to how to become a winner in this life. And so our wives are simply looking at us. Is this guy a good dad? Most of us would probably say yes. I was the piece of shit I was not a good dad. So she's judging you on that, and judging not just you, but all of us. Our wives are judging us to say, we had this baby. Are you going to be present in any way, shape, or form? Now,
Right.
I believe our society is probably, this is more heavily weighted now than maybe it was back when we were tribes. And our one goal was like, dude, if you don't kill a buffalo this month, we're all going to die. So I understand that modern society probably puts more emphasis on this than probably in history past, but it is a big deal now.
Yeah, I don't even think you have to go back that far. I would say 50, 60 years ago, dad went out and he made the money and he came home and food was on the table. And look, that's nice. I mean, that's pretty much my arrangement now. I mean, I work at home, so I'm here,
Yeah.
but my wife is a stay-at-home mom and homemaker and housewife, and she takes care of the kids. But in modern times, that's not as common. And besides, like, I don't want to just be the paycheck. I actually like my kids. I
Yeah.
actually do want to spend time with them. I do want to see them thrive. I do want to hear about what they're concerned with, and I want to see what victories they have and what setbacks and failures they're with. Like you. I am not always great at that. It's very easy. I think I alluded to it earlier, for me to get heavily focused and fixated on the business side of things, on the money and the business and the numbers, at the expense of my family.
Dude, we've all done it. And it's just an indication that you're not all in on the thing that she's all in on, or that you don't care. Like, you created this thing too. And so she's like, can I trust you? And my wife wouldn't even go out for girls' night. She couldn't even trust me to be alone with our daughter. That's how bad it was. Like, maybe I'd be on my phone and not pay attention. And so it was just a turnoff for her. And if my punchline for married game is that she's just not that attracted to you, she's just not that into you anymore. Well, this is a major reason why.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So what's next? So you got parenting.
Second one, partnering, like actually feeling like a partner in this. Like, are we in this together, man? And I like to even like kind of co-phrase this as the best friend dial. And am I actually there listening to her because I care deeply about what's going on in her life? Or am I just putting in some minutes on the clock, hoping that I can go upstairs and get lucky? And you said something, man, just about the last dial. Like, you're like, but I actually really like my kids. That's what your wife is wanting to hear, that you actually like your kids, that you are the guy who actually wants to listen in. If we feel like somebody's doing anything just to get something from us, that reeks of taker energy. And so my wife wanted to know, Keith, do you actually like me? Or like, do you like the whole of me, or do you just like the hole in me? That's a clever little phrase that we say around here. And my wife just wanted to know, do you actually like me, or am I just a walking vagina? Because that's what I feel like right now, Keith. And nobody likes to be felt like they're being used for one thing that they have. None of us like being feel like we're being used. And so the best friend dial is, am I actually showing up? Am I helping with the kids when I'm there? Or am I just on the couch in my own little world while everybody else is living? And they're like, you're not even here. Like, why even be here if you're not even here? And so I look at it more like the present style. Like, if I'm in, am I in? Or am I wandering? And they can tell the difference. And everybody can tell this, whether it's guy, girl, or otherwise.
Yeah, that's crucial, is to be well. And the other thing I've noticed too, at least in my situation, I'm sure everybody else is like this, especially for men, is like we want to fix things, right? So, but we do it out of pure I believe it's pure motive. Like
Yep.
if my wife is struggling with something, I want to help her.
Yeah.
I want to fix it. I want to help her.
Yeah.
Not because I want something out of it, but because I don't like to see her struggling.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have something to share. And
Yeah.
one thing I've really been trying to do since you and I have been talking, even about in my own marriage, is just listening, just trying to listen, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like she said something to me the other day. I said, "Oh man, that must suck or something." I'm like, I can see why you'd be mad about that. And that was it. So much more receptive,
Yeah.
opened up so much more than me saying, "Oh, well, you know what you should do? You should talk to that person and you should tell them this and this and this and this." Like she already
Yeah.
knows that.
You know what? We hate this when guys do this to us too, even though guys like to solve each other's problems. I was at an event not that long ago, and I was saying, "Hey, I'm struggling with this thing." And this guy who I didn't even think was credible to giving me an answer immediately
Mm,
started to try and give me an answer. And I'm like, bro, that was 7 tries ago, dude. Like, you're so far. Like, and it was like, you don't even have a clue what the hell you're talking about. Can you be quiet? And I'm like, oh my God, this is what our wives think when we're trying to solve a problem about shit we don't even know anything
yeah.
about. But
Yeah.
it is natural. We want to run, like, we're problem solvers, bro.
Well, I was thinking about it and we all know this is not new advice for men, is just listen. We don't have to solve. But I was thinking about it in a way, as we listen, actually, we are providing the solution
Yeah.
because she needs somebody to talk to. She
Yeah.
needs somebody to open up emotionally to. So the fact that, and I'm not good at this. I'm trying to work on this and get better at this. But the fact that you can be there and just listen is providing the solution or the outlet that she needs emotionally. So you are
Especially,
providing a solution.
yeah, especially because we're their guy. Like, we're their leader. Like, they're looking to us for, like, hey, I just need to, if we're the rock, then this is where you want to throw your shit, on the rock.
So
Who can
so
handle it?
that's an interesting one too. Is so if we're the rock, when you say that, I've heard a lot of people talk about creating the space is the term that people will use. Like you have to create the space for her to be emotional, be vulnerable. Like what are your thoughts about that? Like or not even creating, holding space, I think is the term that I hear. I'm like, hey,
Yeah,
what does that mean? Holding space. What are your thoughts about that?
dude, we could do a whole episode on this one because this is one I really like a lot. But let me sum it down very shortly in this. You are the tree that she wants to lean against so that she can trust that she can dance underneath your branches. That's
Mm.
what I believe. And so the masculine guy says, bring all your stuff. I'm not going to get defensive. I'm not going to try and solve it. I'm going to be this place for you just to push on. It's why women test so much. They're trying to test. Can you handle me? Can you hold me? Can you deal with this? Or are you just an owner's manual for, if this goes wrong, try and fix this? And so therefore, a lot of guys are just owner manuals and they're not actually redwoods. They're not actually trees that my wife can bring something to me, and rather than me get defensive, I can be like, yeah, you know what? You're probably right about that. I probably did do that stupid thing. And actually, I would feel horrible and like a piece of shit if I responded if you responded that way to me, I wouldn't like that either. And like, literally, hold space means whatever you're saying doesn't affect me. I'm not going to lose my shit over it. I can actually be here and be sturdy and solid and let you go through your thing without me being affected. That is the pinnacle of all of it. And very few guys can get there because we all get a little bit defensive. But if we're just saying, hey, listen, I can handle any of the shit you throw at me because I'm capable. I can handle anything. That is a guy that is a real leader and a real man among men, and a woman, they are radically attracted to that.
So where is there space, if there is any, for a man not to have to be the tree, right? Because we have our own stuff too. Like we have our own baggage, we have our own stories that we've concocted and told ourselves, and we have struggles and concerns and fears. Is that appropriate to communicate to your wife? And if it is, how do you share those things with your wife?
I share most with my wife because she's a little different than most, but every guy would probably say that. But this is why men need other men to be able to talk about their itch. Like my wife doesn't know what it's like to walk through this world with a penis. Same way I don't know what it's like to walk through this world as a very beautiful woman that every guy wants to approach and talk to. So there's very different things. But as the leader, I look, maybe this sounds archaic. I don't care. I look at myself as leader, the head of this household, that when it all boils down to it, it all rests on my shoulders. So I have to be able to, this is just how I show up. I want her to be able to bring her worst day to me and to find comfort and strength by me being her man. And I don't expect her to do the same. I can go talk to my couple of best friends and go, hey man, I got this, this, and this going on. You would understand because you're building a business. You've got a penis. You know what these struggles are. So I'd rather talk. So personally, I'd rather talk to dudes about certain things than my wife, because I don't feel like it's my responsibility to throw it on her shoulders.
And I would agree with that, with the exception of, my wife will say, hey, I want to know what's going on. Like, I want to know what you struggle with. And I think probably most women are like that to a degree. They don't want a baby. Like, they don't want somebody to babysit and to cry, uncontrollably on them. But I think they do want to access that part of us that we tend to, at least I do, tends to wall off, again, for noble reasons. I think my motive is I don't want to burden her with that.
Yeah.
And yet she's asking for it.
I think it's the timing. So rather than this big thing came up, and dude, I will share like issues. If something big comes up, like, hey, listen, I'm dealing with this, but I think energy is everything. Energy behind what we do and how we do it is everything. So if I come to my wife and go, hey, listen, I'm dealing with X, Y, and Z. It's a real stressor for me. I'm not putting that on your shoulder so you can help me figure it out, even though I know you'll want to help me figure it out. Or I put my burden on you for you just solely to figure it out. But I just want you to know I'm working through it so that way, because Jessie loves knowing everything about me. I mean, she answers questions in here. She jumps on the podcast with us.
Yeah.
So my wife likes to know what's going on, but she doesn't want to feel like she has to be the answer or the solution to my problems. But she does want to know, are you working through it? And I'm like, yeah, I am working through it. So I sometimes will have my own coach. I have a coach about a lot of things, but I'll be like, I'm working through like business stuff. She doesn't care about the minutia. But I will tell her, hey, listen, we're trying to grow from here to here, and I'm running into these roadblocks, and it's pretty frustrating. You know what I mean? Or if I just come home frustrated, she's like, what's up? I'm like, hey, there's some things at work that are kind of frying my brain a little bit. And I'll just ask her, hey, can you give me 5 or 10 minutes? I need to go sort through it because I don't want to bring that energy into what we got going on here.
Yeah,
so that's kind of how I approach it.
No, that makes sense. You're letting her in and sharing, but you're doing it with the right energy, which is, hey, I got this. Just want to let you know what's going on, so you're not left in the dark. Because I think that's what I tend to do, and a lot of guys I would imagine as well, is leave their wife in the dark about what's going on, and then she's left over there trying to guess and assume, which isn't going to go correctly. It's not going to go right, because how could it if she's guessing? And so just having those open lines of communication.
Yep, that's exactly
cool. What's the third dial? So we have parenting, partnering,
producing.
Okay.
And this one comes naturally to our DNA, man. We're wired.
I was going to say, this is where I'm solid.
Yeah. We not every guy is, but guys like you and I are, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of guys listening to this podcast that follow you that are always trying. My guess is you haven't got to a spot where you're like, that's good enough. I haven't met a lot of hard chargers like you and I go, that's enough, because we were created to create. So in the creation brings about a fulfillment for us. And so building something that provides value to a marketplace that actually solves a problem is what you and I love doing. This is what this podcast does, man. You've got millions of dudes tuning in saying, I need to learn something about X, Y, or Z. They listen to this and they go, wow, that actually helped my world. So it creates a lot of fulfillment for us as men. The problem is that oftentimes we say we're building it for our family, but yet we're not around or even enjoying our family at all. And so what we're unknowingly asking them is, hey, do you mind hitting pause on our life for 10 years before I can go build up something that I can return and then say, hey, aren't you glad about this thing I built? When in reality, your woman's like, I want to be a part of that creation with you. Like, I want to know, like you said earlier, they want to know what's going on. So, we're good at this. Guys fall into 2 traps. Number 1, workaholics, so they're never with their family. Or number 2, and this is actually what happened in my case. My business was on autopilot, doing very, very well. And I kind of took a back seat and started hanging out and chilling, popping Chipotle burritos like they were Tic Tacs. And the ambition and the drive that really attracted my wife to me was kind of fizzling out. She's like, dude, you want to take over the world when I met you. Now all you want is takeout. Like, what is going on here? And so they lose attraction for a man that's not on their mission, but they also lose attraction for a man who's only on his mission and doesn't care about them. So there's that fine balance. And I say this, women are wired to, they don't want cloth seats for the rest of their life. Eventually they want to upgrade to leather. And if you understand that's their wiring, then be that man who has resources. And that's, again, it's just being a man of resources.
Well, and I know in addition, well, you said it when you said they want to do it with you, is that at times I've made my wife feel like, hey, you're independent, you're strong, you can do this on your own. So you go do that. And I'm going to go over here and take care of this. And then we'll reconvene at some point.
Right.
You know? And actually she's right. I really admire her for her strength and her independence, but we take advantage of that. Right. She's like, oh, she's fine. She's fine. Now she's good. She's fine. While we go over here and do our own thing. And then hopefully at some point, you know, and all the while, I think she probably would have been fine with having, you know, an upgrade. Sure. But she doesn't need the maximum if that means that we're not going to be there emotionally for her and the kids.
It's a direction thing. It's like, are we moving in the direction towards our goals? And do I feel like we're doing it together? If she doesn't feel those things, she's going to start to lose attraction.
So that's where that second dial, the partnering, comes in.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
They
so
all
we have
kind of fit together. And most guys, Ryan, these first three, we should be decent at, you know what I mean? Like, hey, you should want to raise your kids. You should want to talk to your wife, and you should provide. Right.
Well, I think one of the challenges though, so I'm looking at this and it's like, all right, let's look at my situation, you know, parenting. I feel like I'm a good father. I know I love my kids. I haven't always been a great father. I'm not always present. I lose my patience and my cool at times. So I feel like I'm doing it, but maybe I'm not, you know, or with partnering, it's like, okay, well, I'm providing an income. We have this home, we have these things. And so I feel like I'm doing it, but maybe I'm not actually doing it the way that she would like to see it. Same thing with production. That's the challenge, is we think we're doing it, and we are according to our own definition, but I think it gets lost in translation a bit between the two sexes.
Yeah, that's a good point. And here's something else to consider. And it is putting a metric to each of these things to know whether you're actually hitting a standard or not. And so for me, on my parenting dial, I have to spend 30 minutes a day with my daughter alone, one-on-one time, or I don't get my point for the day. So that's a metric.
That's where the game component comes in.
This is where the game component comes in, where it's like, all right, so for me, because we're saying like somebody gets to set the standard, and hopefully it's you, and hopefully it's a high one. And the higher the standard you set and the higher the standard you hit, the more fulfilled you're actually going to be inside your life. I believe striving for something worthy is what creates so much joy within us and creates the real fulfillment inside of our soul. So for me, I have talked and hung out with my daughter for 30 minutes a day, every single day for such a long time. Unless I'm traveling, that metric changes and it becomes a FaceTime or a text. But dude, that my daughter's like a barnacle on me. She just... And I know my brain, I know the average amount of time a parent actually spends with their kid is, I think it's 37 minutes a week.
Whoa.
And I would dare say they're counting like driving to football practice. It's rare for a guy to just sit down with his kids and be like, I don't got this, nothing but just, what are we doing, you and me? And so that's a metric. For my partnering thing is there something I do every single day that helps Jessie as a partner? For me, I make her green drink every morning. You know what I mean? I put, her stuff, I shake it up. So when she comes downstairs, it's there. And she says, Keith, honestly, still, I've been doing this for a few years, still 90% of the time she goes, oh, he made that for me.
Oh, I was gonna ask on that. Like doing those type of things, like on a consistent basis daily, for example, does it just become an expectation at that point and it loses some of its efficacy?
Maybe. But I can tell you, after doing green drinks for like 3.5 years now, yes, there's an expectation. Like if I don't have it, she'll jokingly go, where's my green drink? And I'm like, oh my God, well, I was surfing and the waves were amazing and I forgot to make it or whatever.
Right.
But it does kind of become a standard, but I actually kind of think that's a feature, not a flaw, if I'm being honest, because now it's like, we've set the standard for brushing our teeth every day. If we don't, we're like, whoa, that feels awkward. So I've set the standard that I'm going to make her drink every day. So if it doesn't make it becomes awkward, it's like, oh, well, that's not the standard. So maybe there's some blowback on it, but I think the positives outweigh it.
Well, I'm not saying it like it's a negative. I'm just saying it becomes an expectation. And then do you need to do something else in addition to that to get that spontaneity back, you know?
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. Because we do as humans love novelty. We like when things are switched up a little bit. So yeah, there's other, like for me, it's like helping, like a partnering thing for me, or really showing that I'm in this, is rather than say, hey, let's go on a family date at 5:15 and I show up at 5:14 and 45 seconds, like I'm here. I show up now at 5:05 and say, hey, how can I get our daughter ready? How can I help show that I'm in this thing together? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to say a really funny story that a lot of guys will so relate to, but I asked my wife the other day, we got home late from one trip and we were leaving literally the next morning for another trip. I said, hey, how can I help you out tonight? She goes, oh, do you mind scooping up the poop outside? It's my dog. It's actually not on I'm not the poop scooper in our family. I've got many other jobs, but that's not one of them. And I started literally like debating with her, like, we should hire somebody for that. And let's delegate this off. And she goes, whoa, dude, listen. You asked me one question. How can I help you? I told you it. So do you want me to like pick something that doesn't really help me so it's approved on your list, or do you want to just fucking help me, guy?
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm such a dodo bird, dude. Like this was 3 weeks ago, Ryan, and I'm good at this. So it's like those types of things that if they ask me for something, yeah, let me do that for you. These are like practical ways I can show up as a partner. My wife was sick yesterday, so I went over to CVS and got a bunch of shit for them, so that way they could, heal up and whatever. Partnering point.
Got it. All right, what's next? So we got parenting, partnering, producing.
Now, these last two are the ones that most guys really, really, really make a mistake on. And let me just tell my next meeting. I'm running 10 minutes late because I don't want to cut this short.
I was trying to time it right. I got it off, man. We were trying to get you out of here on time.
No, dude, you're perfect. I feel bad that I scheduled that. So these next two are the ones I think are the absolute, I call them the lady boner killers of all lady boner killers. And these are them. All right. Number one is the player knob. Guys are just not any fun anymore. And I always jokingly say, to quote the great American poet, Cyndi Lauper, girls just want to have fun. And yet as guys, because we're so busy building, we forget that feminine energy wants to dance underneath our branches, but it will only dance underneath our branches if it knows the tree's not going to fall down. And so having fun, the simplest analogy for me is this: dating. When was the last time you took your girl on a date that was like really like meaningful, that was fun, that you would take somebody on a first date like that? And I just go, if most guys, I say, hey, when's the last time you went on a date? And they're like, oh, like 6 weeks ago. I go, you mean 12? And they're like, okay, 12 weeks ago. I go, what did you do? And then they go, well, we went over to Home Depot and picked up some parts for the house and then, swang through the Chick-fil-A drive-thru. And I'm like, well, no shit, Casanova. No wonder you're not getting more ass than a toilet seat, dude. Like you literally are not like, that's not a date. That's not fun. Nobody's excited about that at all. And so what we need to do is like, how do we show that we're in this and we're still dating, and take her out of the house and out into an environment? The house is where, dude, she's raising kids, stepping on Legos, dealing with PTA, homework bullshit, all that, right? Take her out back into the wild where you met her, where you danced with her, where you had fun with her. Guys, when they say I do, it's as if they act as if it's done and as if they've come through the finish line. In reality, you're just stepping into the starting blocks. Creating and maintaining real fiery attraction, real connectiveness in a marriage it does not happen by accident. And fun is a big precursor to that. And it's not just, and it's not lavish dates. It's, when's the last time you guys have sat around and belly laughed with each other or danced in the living room to that song that you guys both love? And so when the fun gets pulled out of it, the flirtiness, if you think about every sexual relationship, it always starts off with a little bit of mystery and a lot of flirting. There's always that sexual tension there. Well, to create that, you have to continue to keep that. You have to create the environment that was also built in, which is going out on fun dates. And all it is saying, I'm going to give you my time and energy for these 3 hours. Nothing else matters, because I care so much about the investment of us staying connected and being truly one. And guys have forgotten that.
I like what you said there too. I think you just kind of, as a throwaway for you, but I care about the investment.
Yeah.
Like that means a lot, because it is an investment. You know, it's because sometimes I think about it, I'm like, oh man, date night, 3 hours or whatever. Like I've got this and I've got that. And then Wednesday I'm here, and Tuesday she's there. And then Thursday the kids are here. It's like, skip it.
Yeah.
But if you want it, you have to invest, which an investment requires sacrifice. Otherwise it's not an investment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
And I call it ROI, is the return of intimacy. If you want true intimacy and connect, because connection inside the bedroom is directly related to the connection outside the bedroom, unless you're married to like some super nympho freak, which those are very, very rare. And frankly, they're very exhausting to be around. Most of us are not in that situation. So the connectedness outside shows that, hey, listen, I'm investing my time, my effort, my energy. Most people say time is your greatest asset. I disagree. I think your energy is your greatest asset, because if you had all the time in the world with no energy to enjoy it, what would it be worth? You'd be a vegetable. Right. So the energy is very, very important. And when somebody knows that they have your energy, planning, engaging, phone off, looking into this woman's eyes, caring about what she says, well, you're giving her your greatest asset, which is your energy, which is your attention. And attention is focused energy. And so I believe women in a long-term relationship desire and crave the attention of a supremely valuable man over and above everything and anything. But most men are not supremely valuable. And they don't give their wife actually a lot of attention. It comes down to TNA. Both sexes love TNA. We like tits and ass. They like time and attention. Time and attention. It just is what it is.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So what's the last dial? We okay on time?
We're good. They just canceled, so we're totally good.
Okay. What's the last dial?
So the last dial is the power dial. And this one actually is probably the most important out of all of them. It's why guys that, even if they're not that fun and they're pretty bad on some of the other dials, if they have this dial in spades, their relationship actually won't seem as off as any of the other ones. And it's the power dial. Simply means this: do you do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it without fail? And what that means is, can somebody trust you? Do they really trust that when you say you're going to do something, you'll actually do it? And this is where I came up with the phrase, like, my wife's she's not worried about me going to cheat on her. I will not do that. I will not break my word to my wife. She knows that. But her real trust is won over when I do what I say I'm going to do every single time I say I'm going to do it, even in the small things. That's where I came up with the phrase, when the trust goes down, the lust goes down. So it's like, I go, yeah, I'll be here at a certain time, and then I don't. Or I'll swing by and get something from the store on the way home from work, but then I don't. I go, oh man, it was crazy. And there's always an excuse for why I don't actually do what I say I'm going to do. But I would never do that with a client. I would never do that with a business relationship. And our wives are watching, and they're like, well, dude, you and Garrett just went on a 7-day trip to Costa Rica, surfing your brains out, and you planned every single detail. In fact, you even ordered jerseys so you could have matching jerseys on the plane right out there. Like, she goes, I know what you're capable of, dude. And yet you can't even swing by and pick up soup on the way home. Like, so they see this radical difference in what we say we are and what we believe, and who we actually are and what we believe. And they're like, this is disgusting. You're not even who you say you are. That's the power dial. And it wrinkles into some other things like, do you edit or audit these are questions that we ask within Married Game at the end of every day. I ask myself these 4 questions every single day. Number 1, did I do what I say I'm going to do without fail? Like, did I consciously make an effort to do that? Do I forget shit? Of course. That's what it really means to be human. But blatantly pushing something off, you're not allowed to say, oh, I'm just human. No, you're lazy, which is human. But did I do what I said I'm going to do? Did I edit or audit my shine?
What do you mean by that?
This is a big one. Editing or auditing your shine simply means, do you hold back who you really are because you're afraid you're not going to be accepted for who you truly are? And so I believe in a creator. Every single Sunday night, I spend 3 hours with that creator doing my thing. I call up my time with my creator. My wife doesn't believe in a creator. She's like, I don't know. She goes, I'm not saying I don't, but I'm not saying I do. I just don't know. I don't know. I wasn't raised that way. I love the earth. I love humans, whatever, but I'm not sure if there is. But I don't like not talk about my creator because she doesn't, quote unquote, believe in one. I talk about it like, well, if you don't believe in it, that's fine. But listen to my story because this is how it works for me. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing this meeting with my creator for like 39 months straight. I haven't missed it once. And my wife's like, I don't know who you're talking to or who you think is talking to you in there, but you're a much better man for doing it. So I applaud you for doing it. So editing or auditing my shine, most guys aren't necessarily getting laid the way they want, and I say they get thrown like a crumb of connection or a crumb of intimacy every once in a while. So they don't want to upset the apple cart by saying what they really believe about something because they don't want that taken away.
Got it.
And so so when you edit or audit your shine, you're not like being who you truly are. And when you're not being who you truly are, what you really believe, no human respects you. No, if you came out with a post tomorrow, Ryan, where you're like, you know what? It's something different than what you've said, maybe about the trans community or about masculinity or whatever. And by the way, speaking of masculinity, can we talk about this?
Yeah, man, you got it.
Bro, I am 137 pages plus the introduction, which is 5. So I'm 140 plus pages in this thing. And I love it so much, man. Awesome. I love this. Awesome. I love it. I read it 10 to 15 pages every morning, and I can't wait to read it. I sit right on that. I love it.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot to me.
So if you said something opposite of what's in your book or whatever, you're like, you know what, dude, I think I'm a trans woman now. We would all be like, what?
Yes.
That's not who you really are, Ryan. And so our respect for you would be just crumbled and go away altogether. And so that's what happens when somebody's not being truly authentically them. They're editing, they're auditing their shine. Like, I got to be this person around this person. I got to be this person around this person. It's like, no, be you. I wear short shorts. You've seen my short shorts. People make fun of me. My daughter and wife don't even like my short shorts. They don't even like them. And my wife's like, I know why he wears them though. Cause I grew up being an athlete. And when I wear those shorts, I feel like I'm an athlete. That's all it is. I have great, amazing legs. Why? Because I was an athlete and we wore those shorts. And so I still wear them, not on date nights. Jesse's like, can you just not wear them on date nights? When it's
appropriate.
Like,
yes.
Yeah. Just, hey, buddy. So then what would happen? Well, she realizes Keith's going to be Keith. And I respect the hell out of him for being 100% who he is. Now I'm growing, I'm learning, and I do some stupid shit, and I recognize that. But it's not because I'm worried about what she thinks or you think or anybody thinks. I go, what makes Keith Yackey happy? I got one roll of the dice at this game that I know of. So I want to be all me. Another one is, did you not initiate sex for fear of rejection, or if you were rejected, did you become a pouty little bitch?
Yeah.
Dude, I was the biggest, poutiest bitch ever when I didn't get laid. And it's like, that is not going to make her want to have sex with you more, bro. Like, what are you doing? So, and I'm giving away the power. I'm saying it, and we call it the mom matrix. A lot of guys, like, they don't clean up after themselves very much. They're seeking validation. They're doing things just to get something from their wife, and the power switches. So rather than a man being like, I'm stepping up for my family, I'm being an awesome dude, I'm loving my wife, I'm being a part of my community, I'm providing, I'm presiding, I'm protecting, I'm being this badass dude. And then when I come to my wife, I become like, oh, what do you say, mama? What are you saying? And she's like, you can't, dude, your underwear is 1 foot from the fucking hamper. What is your problem, child?
Yeah. Yeah.
She loses respect. Jesse came up to me one time and was like, Keith, did you have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich earlier? I'm like, thinking she's Nostradamus. I'm like, how did you know? And she's like, dude, you left a glob of jelly and a fucking scrape of peanut butter on the counter, you child. I'm like, Dude. Bro, the number one rule of masculinity is carry your own weight. And yet I'm walking around my house as if I've got this cleaning fairy
Right.
on
Right.
full retainer. It's like, dude, that is not the type of thing that makes a wife go, wow, I can't wait to jump in bed with that man. So when we lose these things, did I do my personal development for anybody else other than me? And did I get butthurt that nobody noticed? That's another question we ask ourselves.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Because this is all validation seeking. I hope my wife. Because actually the whole cause of why I'm doing what I'm doing deeper than anything, man, is I feel like I'm a watchman on the wall, Ryan. And that's a harken back to an Old Testament, of being somebody on the wall watching during the night hour, that if any enemies come in, we can sound the alarm so we can protect ourselves. And I believe that 80% of divorces don't have to happen. And so I want to help. My mission is to help keep the nuclear family together. But the only way it's really going to stay together and thrive and be connected and have intimacy and sex and all the things that we as guys want is by men truly being radically manly and being like, I'm doing this for me. You know why I look awesome and have biceps? Because I like them. Do I like that my wife likes them? Of course, but I choose how I show up in this world. And so when you actually gain your power back, this is the biggest key here. If you gain your power back by doing what you say you're going to do, living by a standard for you, becoming the most attractive version for you, then what happens is if she doesn't actually like you at the best version of you, then you can make a decision from power saying, then you don't get to ride shotgun in my life anymore. Because I like me. And I have a metric to show I'm actually showing up as a good dude. And so most guys, when they go into divorce, or if she leaves, or they aren't having the intimacy that they want, they become very disempowered and very desperate, as opposed to being empowered and be like, no, hold on a second. And so that's why I created the metric for it. And that's why we created these power questions, because even if you're a great parent, a great partner, a great provider, and you like to have fun and play, if you're a pussy and you don't stand in your power, she's going to be like, I want to respect you, but I can't. And respect, I believe, is one of the key foundations of why somebody would actually be attracted to you. And attraction means lean in, dude. Like, my wife wants to be around me. This is what we're all searching for as men. And it's by standing up for who we actually are, not in like I'm not a dickhead to my wife, but if she goes, if she says some crazy shit, I'm like, well, I don't necessarily believe that, but if that's working out for you, well done. Like, I'm not swayed by it. That's power.
Yeah, it is. I love it, man.
You
I love
feel
it.
that?
Oh, I feel it. And we've been talking. So I feel it even just outside of this conversation, like everything that you've shared with me, since we've known each other, but even over the past several months, has been really, really powerful for me.
Thank you,
for sure.
Man. Well, all of that equals what we call the provocateur. And the provocateur is simply the man who provokes his woman to want to be around him. Like, my wife is like, for 5.5 years ago, for her to leave and say, my life would be better without you in it, to now coming home from date night, she's like, pull over and let's have sex in the back of the Escalade. Like, this is a very big leap. Okay.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it did not happen overnight, but it's built off of these foundational principles of, okay, am I showing up in this way? And if I am, then I'm the best version of me. And dude, you said it at the very beginning. You're like, bro, I like I want to be with my kids, because you've become a dad who does that. This is all about becoming. This isn't 3 words to get your wife hot and heavy so she'll want to have sex with you.
Right.
3 words don't work if you're not showing up. So this is more like, hey, dude, you've got to become the guy that any woman would be thrilled to be with. And that's hard work. Like, I always tell anybody who ever comes in our program, I say, I want you to understand, you just did the simplest thing there. Website said, swipe your credit card. That's the simplest thing that we do in Married Game. Because now you're actually going to have to show up and actually love this family the way, because everybody goes, I want to have rock star in the sheets. I want to believe this. I go, but you're not a rock star. You want the feeling of being wanted, but you're not wantable. You have to do something. You have to become wantable. Then you'll feel wanted. Or else, if you're not feeling wanted, you will not accept that as the standard anymore. And
well, and also it becomes, when you become wantable, being wanted actually isn't really an issue. Like the more that I work on myself, the less I'm worried about how others feel about me.
exactly.
Like, I don't need you to want me. I feel good about, now I like it.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about my wife. I'm talking about friends. I'm talking about business partnerships. Like, if it works, cool. And if it doesn't, cool. Like,
Yeah.
I'm okay
But
with
there's
that. And
something
I'm
so
not there.
attractive about that.
It
Well, but
is.
you are in a lot of ways though, Ryan. Like
Well, I'm
is in the
working on it.
business world, like is the business world, people want more things from you than you want from them at this point in your career.
Yeah. A lot of people, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, not everybody. There's always going to be a blue-haired barista that doesn't like us. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But you've earned that. You've earned it. I've earned the right to know that my wife wants to have sex with me. Why? Because I'm sexy to her and to any woman. They'd be like, well, he's a great parent. He's a great partner. He's a great player. He's a great producer. Man, he's a great, he steps in his, like, these are the things that actually attract any woman to a man. So therefore, if you go, I'm now the prize, and you believe it, like, I believe if Jessie, for some reason, and you're right, dude, she is so hot and she's so wonderful and she's so amazing, but she's so funny and she's so cool and she's just such a good hang that it's like, dude, if she left me, I would be sad because she's my best friend. But I would also know in the back of my mind, there would be 100 women at my door going, how the heck do I become the next Mrs. Keith Yackey? I don't say that for effect. I believe it. Why? Go look at my score. Go look at my stats. Dude, I've been scoring 34 or 35 out of 35 for the last 2 years solid by my tracking system. I've been showing up. My wife can never deny that Keith doesn't show up. She can't go, he's bad at any of those. She'll say, last Tuesday, he really sucked at this dial, and I'll tell you exactly how he did it. But by and large, no way. So, and that's the confidence. So I have a lot of confidence in that. And confidence is radically attractive, but I earned it the same way you've earned the confidence in your business. Why anybody would love to be on, when you said, hey, you want to be on the podcast? Yes, man, of course. You've earned my respect. Therefore, I'm leaning in. It happens all across guys and girls, man. But guys, for some reason, and this is the other thing, guys go, family's my most important thing. Your stats don't show that.
Yeah, that's a good. I've fallen into that trap. Because I'll say it. Dude, it's so easy to say it. It's most important. It's most important. Let me see. And then you look at my calendar and you look at how I spend my time. It's like, really? Is it really the most important? Well, no, actually, no, not according to what I do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dude. And so these are real life things. Like, I didn't realize it for the longest time that I was the problem. But when she left, it was like a light switch went off in my head. I go, I am the problem. And I'd say that 95% of the guys I've worked with, they were the problem. And they go, oh, wow, man, I didn't see this. I didn't see this. But then there's like that 5% of the guys where they are not the problem. And their wife just isn't attracted to them. Their wife is just whatever she is. And I go, but yeah, you're still the problem. They go, what do you mean? I go, well, now you're settling. And we have a phrase and it says, is her response does not dictate my standard. Her response only dictates how long I will allow her to live below my standard before I say this isn't going to work anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the guy who has the power. And it's not, power is beautiful. Power is a tool. Dude, the way you talked about committed versus compliant, the way you talked about authority and credibility and influence, this book nails. Dude, if anybody just listens and reads and actually does what's in that book, they would have what they want.
You know, you said something about standard, how long you would put up with it. And I think the trap that a lot of men could fall into is because your wife is acting a way that you might say, well, she's not living to my standard. But I would put out a word of caution there that the first course of action is not to throw her to the curb. The first course of action is to make sure that you have actually elevated your standard, that you are actually the standard. And if we're not the standard, That's the first course of action before we say she doesn't get to ride with us.
Amen. Well, that's why I tell every guy, my program is 90 days when they come in to actually work with us. And I just say, I don't care about her for the first 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
Until you can look me in my eye and tell me, Keith, I'm the most attractive version of me, then you got work to do. We're not even worried about her. I am convinced that if the dude stands up and becomes, which takes work, which takes time, which takes effort, which takes all the things, if you become that guy, dude, your wife will turn around. Not always. There's 5%, 10%. 9 out of 10 guys that I work with either get their wife back or get their wife back attracted to them. But there's 10% of the guys where that doesn't take it because it was just too long. Or this person feels like they have to go experience this. When I tried to get Jessie back the first time, she goes, I have to go experience what I'm going to go experience. I want to believe that you've changed, but I have to go experience this other thing or I'll kick myself the rest of my life. So some guys just don't have the time or the runway to actually become that. And it almost works out better for them because now they're becoming that for one reason, themselves.
Yep.
And that is the greatest gift a man could ever be given in his entire life. And most of us don't come to this until later on in life, man. And I don't know if it's our society. I don't know why that is, dude.
Well, brother, I know you've been a big help for me, and I know even having this conversation is going to be big help for a lot of the guys who are experiencing some of these issues. Like all of us, basically every man listening is experiencing this to varying degrees. So let the guys know where to connect with you and learn more about the Married Game and what you're up to.
Well, then go to marriedgame.com and watch a video and you know, I go deeper into detail about some of these things. But actually I'm most active on Instagram. And I'm just at Keith Yackey. We have a lot of reels and stuff, and I can't wait to have you on our podcast whenever you're in town. We only do it in the man cave, but it would just be such an honor to have you. So just at Keith Yackey on Instagram or go to marriedgame.com and watch a video there that will explain how this all works.
Awesome. We'll sync it all up. Keith, I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate our friendship above and beyond this conversation. So keep doing good work, and we'll keep sending guys your way.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. It's been an honor.